Okay, ready for some seriously intense what-ifs?
I'm ready.
Today's deep dive takes us into the world of presidential assassination attempts,
Oh, wow.
the ones that thankfully failed.
Yeah,
It's a lens that reveals a lot, isn't it?
it is. It is.
We all know the tragedies, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, JFK,
Right.
but exploring the near misses,
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to understand just how fragile power can be
Yeah.
and how differently things might have unfolded.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. We've got sources covering attempts on presidents from Andrew Jackson all the way to Donald Trump.
Really?
It's kind of wild how many close calls there have been,
Wow.
almost like hidden turning points in history.
It is like hidden turning points.
Precisely.
Uh-huh.
And what's even more fascinating is how these brushes with death
Yeah.
reveal insights not just about the presidents themselves,
Yeah, right.
but about the political climate of their time.
Yeah.
Imagine the ripple effects that could have reshaped everything.
I can't even imagine it.
Let's start with setting the scene. We all know about the successful assassinations, right?
Of course.
Lincoln, Kennedy.
Yep.
Those tragedies are almost ingrained in our collective memory.
They are.
They're essential context, reminding us of the stakes even in the attempts that failed.
Right.
The potential for chaos,
Yeah.
the sudden shift in leadership, the impact on policies.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there,
Yeah.
even in a near miss.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock way back.
Okay.
First president to face this kind of threat,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
Now, this guy was known for his fiery personality, right?
Oh, absolutely.
1835.
Yeah.
A man named Richard Lawrence tries to shoot Jackson.
Okay.
Not once,
Oh, my gosh.
but twice with 2 pistols.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievably, both misfire.
Wow.
You'd think that'd be enough to make anyone pause,
Yeah.
but not Jackson.
Of course not.
He charges at Lawrence
No way.
and starts beating him with his cane.
Oh, my God.
What a scene that must have been.
Pure Jackson, right?
But it does make you think, if those pistols hadn't misfired,
Yeah.
would his death have truly altered the course of American history?
That's a good question.
He was a force of nature,
Yeah.
pushing westward expansion,
Uh-huh.
shaking up the political landscape with his populist approach.
Right.
So were those trends already so deeply ingrained
Mm-hmm.
that even without him at the helm, they would
Yeah.
continue?
Yeah.
Like, would his vice president have just stepped in and carried on those policies?
It's possible.
And we can't forget, Jackson's impact went beyond his presidency.
Yeah.
His actions as a general, the War of 1812, expanding U.S. territory, that legacy would have stood regardless.
Right.
So even without those presidential years,
Yeah.
his mark on history was pretty much guaranteed.
Absolutely.
But still, it makes you wonder how the specifics might have played out differently.
Exactly.
It highlights how important it is to consider not just the individual,
Uh-huh.
but the whole context surrounding these what-ifs.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of presidents whose legacies loom large,
Right.
let's move on to Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
He was almost killed a year before the Ford's Theater assassination
What?
in a really bizarre incident.
Oh, really?
Wait, really?
Yeah.
During the Civil War?
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
1864, Lincoln's riding alone to the soldiers' home,
Okay.
and out of nowhere, a sniper takes a shot,
Oh, wow.
knocking his hat clean off.
Wow.
Imagine the shock of that, just riding along,
Yeah.
and suddenly your hat's gone.
Okay, that is seriously creepy.
I know.
It's one thing to know about the assassination that ultimately happened,
Yeah.
but to think he almost died a year earlier,
Wow.
that's chilling.
Right.
And it was still the middle of the Civil War.
Yes.
Makes you wonder if things would have spiraled even further out of control if he'd been killed then?
Well, some might argue
Okay.
that by 1864, the North was on track to win the war,
Mm-hmm.
so Lincoln's death wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Okay.
But the real challenge was what came after the fighting.
Ooh.
Reconstruction,
Yeah.
rebuilding the South,
Huh.
integrating formerly enslaved people,
Yeah.
incredibly complex and delicate.
Yeah.
Could anyone have handled that like Lincoln?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Even if the North still won the war,
Mm-hmm.
the peace that followed could have been vastly different.
Precisely.
His leadership,
Okay.
his vision for a unified nation,
Right.
it was essential.
Absolutely.
And it's hard not to draw a line from his assassination in 65
Mm-hmm.
to the struggles for racial equality that continue even today.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of how much can hinge on one person,
Right.
one moment.
It really is.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Mhm.
let's look at Theodore
Okay.
a man who embodies the idea of resilience.
He does.
His story is just Well,
Yeah,
it's almost too perfect for his larger-than-life persona.
it is.
Oh, yeah, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes.
He's the one who got shot and then just kept on giving his speech right.
That's right.
It's such a classic Teddy move, brushing off something that was stopped most people in their tracks.
Exactly.
1912, campaigning for president again.
Oh, wow.
A man named John Schrank shoots him at close range.
Oh, my gosh.
But get this, the bullet was slowed down by a thick stack of speech papers
Oh, my God.
and his eyeglasses case tucked in his pocket.
Really?
So he was literally saved by his own words.
Unbelievable.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I bet he loved that detail.
I'm sure he did.
What does Roosevelt do?
What does he do?
He brushes himself off, assures everyone he's fine,
Of course.
and proceeds to deliver that speech for a full 90 minutes
Oh, my God.
with the bullet still in his chest.
Wow.
It's a perfect bull moose moment,
It really is.
living up to his nickname.
Exactly.
Didn't see something like,
Mm.
it takes more than that to kill a bull moose.
He did.
And while it solidified his tough guy reputation,
Uh-huh.
it's interesting to note that this dramatic event didn't win him the election.
It did.
History is full of those little ironies, isn't it?
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
You'd think surviving an assassination attempt on the campaign trail would be a surefire way to get votes.
You would.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've had misfires,
Mm-hmm.
a near miss with a sniper,
Yep.
and a bullet stopped by a speech.
Crazy.
Let's talk about Franklin D. Roosevelt,
Okay.
an attempt that happened at a truly pivotal moment,
You're thinking about 1933, right?
just days before FDR's inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
America's in the depths of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
A man named Giuseppe Zangara opens fire,
Oh, wow.
aiming for Roosevelt.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really scary.
Oh.
FDR survives, but the mayor of Chicago, Anton Cermak, is fatally wounded.
Oh, my God.
It's a stark reminder that even when the intended target survives,
Yeah.
these attempts have devastating consequences,
Right.
tragic and a chilling near miss.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Zangara had succeeded in killing FDR,
Oh, my God.
America without his leadership during the Depression,
Yeah.
and later World War II.
Right.
It's almost unfathomable.
I know, right?
It makes you realize how much we take those pivotal figures for granted.
Absolutely.
The New Deal, his wartime leadership,
Yeah.
to think all that could be completely different.
Precisely.
The ripple effects,
Mm-hmm.
both domestically and on a global scale,
Right.
are staggering to consider.
I know.
It really underscores how much can hinge on one life, one moment in time.
Absolutely.
All right, this next one is straight out of a spy thriller.
Okay.
An alleged plot to assassinate Churchill, Stalin, and FDR all at once.
Oh, wow.
Ah, yes. The Tehran Conference of 1943.
Okay.
A plot shrouded in mystery and intrigue,
Hmm.
with conflicting accounts and theories about what really happened.
Yeah.
So what do we know about it?
What do we know?
It sounds like something you'd see in a movie.
It does.
Well, Soviet sources claim German agents were secretly deployed to Tehran for the assassinations.
Oh, my God.
But they say the Soviets uncovered the plot
Wow.
and apprehended some of the agents, preventing a catastrophic event.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about high-stakes espionage.
And I know, right?
Did any other sources confirm that story?
Well, it's difficult to say with certainty.
Yep.
Details remain murky even today,
Right.
but it highlights just how far nations were willing to go during World War II and the incredible risks involved in wartime leadership.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer of complexity to an already incredibly tense period in history.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift our focus to Harry Truman.
Okay.
Another close call with potentially massive implications, particularly for the Cold War.
Absolutely.
1950, two Puerto Rican nationalists stormed Blair House,
Wow.
where Truman was residing because of White House renovations,
Okay.
and a full-on shootout erupts.
Oh, my God.
It was a chaotic scene,
I bet.
and tragically, a White House policeman was killed in the crossfire.
Oh, no.
It's a sobering reminder that these acts of violence have real human costs,
Yes.
even when they fail.
We do.
A powerful point.
Uh-huh.
But if we put ourselves back in that moment,
Yeah.
the question becomes,
Okay.
would Truman's death have significantly altered the Cold War's trajectory?
I don't know.
Well, he was such a key figure in shaping U.S. foreign policy during that era.
Yeah.
Containment, the Marshall Plan,
Uh-huh.
it all stemmed from his leadership.
Right.
It's hard to imagine someone else making those same calls.
It is.
True.
Yeah.
But by 1950, the Cold War was already well underway.
That's true.
His successor, Dwight Eisenhower,
Mm-hmm.
continued many of his policies,
Yeah.
albeit with his own style.
Right.
So maybe the broad strokes wouldn't have changed all that much.
Possibly.
Or would a different personality at the helm have led to a completely different approach? Maybe even escalating tensions further.
That's a question, isn't it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can analyze the policies, the players,
Right.
the global climate,
Right.
but ultimately,
Yeah.
we're left with a fascinating what if that underscores the unpredictable nature of history.
It really does.
Now, let's talk about John F. Kennedy,
Okay.
a president whose assassination tragically did happen.
Right.
But it turns out there was an earlier attempt
Oh, wow.
that could have changed everything.
Really?
One with a deeply personal twist.
Oh, wow.
You're talking about the incident in 1960,
Okay.
before he even took office. A man named Richard Pavlik planned to ram his car loaded with dynamite
Oh, my gosh.
straight into Kennedy's vehicle.
Oh, my God.
It's chilling to think about the potential devastation,
I know.
especially knowing how his presidency ultimately ended.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there's a twist.
Yeah,
Pavlik backs out at the last moment
he did.
because he sees Kennedy's wife, Jackie,
Wow.
and their young daughter, Caroline,
Oh, wow.
saying goodbye.
Really?
Imagine that.
Yeah.
A family farewell, unknowingly saving a life.
Wow. Talk about fate intervening.
But it raises a huge what if.
What if?
What would happen during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Oh, yeah.
Arguably the tensest Cold War moment.
But definitely if Kennedy hadn't been president.
Yeah.
That question has haunted historians for decades.
It has.
Would someone else have navigated that crisis with the same cool head and judgment?
It's hard to say.
His vice president was Lyndon B. Johnson, a skilled politician in his own right,
Right.
with a very different style.
Yeah,
Thinking about the potential consequences is mind-boggling.
totally.
It makes you realize just how much can hinge on those seemingly random moments of chance.
It really does.
And it underscores how even seemingly minor events can have enormous and entirely unforeseen ripple effects.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we dive into more recent presidents,
Okay.
let's pause here for a second.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
and it's heavy stuff, right?
It is.
What's striking you as we go through these near misses?
Oh.
I'm finding myself constantly thinking, what if?
Yeah.
What if things had gone just a little bit differently?
I think that's the power of these stories, isn't it?
They offer a unique lens to examine not just the presidents themselves,
Right.
but their legacies, the turning points in history that we often take for granted.
Yeah.
We're forced to confront those what-ifs head-on.
We are.
And for me, it underscores how history isn't just a straight line.
Right.
It's full of these potential forks in the road,
Yeah.
moments where everything could have gone in a completely different direction.
Yeah, it really is. Like we're getting a glimpse into alternate realities, seeing how fragile the course of history actually is. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about presidents facing these threats during their time in office, but what about after they've left the White House? Richard Nixon's story takes us there, and it involves a plot with huge international implications.
You're talking about the 1974 hijacking, right?
Yeah, Samuel Bike,
Yeah.
a deeply troubled individual, commandeered a plane at Baltimore Washington International Airport.
Wow.
His stated goal,
Yeah.
to kill Nixon.
Oh my gosh.
It's chilling, isn't it? Using a plane as a weapon.
Yeah.
Feels almost unthinkable for that time.
Yeah. Like something out of a nightmare.
It was a terrifying incident.
Yeah.
Tragically, Bike killed an airline employee and a police officer during the hijacking. A stark reminder of the real human cost, the ripple effects that extend far beyond the intended target.
Absolutely. But in a twist of fate, the plane never took off.
Really?
Authorities had put wheel blocks in place, preventing a potential airborne disaster.
Wow.
Bike ultimately took his own life in the cockpit before the situation could escalate further.
Oh, gosh.
A grim end to a harrowing situation.
It is.
But it does raise questions about security protocols,
Uh-huh.
about how vulnerable even the most heavily guarded targets can be.
Right.
And it forces us to consider the what-ifs.
Yeah.
What if those wheel blocks hadn't been in place?
Right.
What if Bike had managed to get that plane into the air?
I don't even want to think about it. Just
Yeah.
start thinking about. Okay, let's move on to a president whose assassination attempt is seared into many people's memories. Ronald Reagan was a shocking moment unfolding live on television for the world to see.
Yes, 1981.
Yeah.
Just a few months into his presidency.
Yeah.
John Hinckley Jr., driven by a delusional obsession with actress Jodie Foster,
Hmm.
shoots Reagan as he's leaving a hotel in Washington, D.C.
And wasn't just Reagan who was injured,
Right.
right?
Sadly, no.
Okay.
Press Secretary James Brady was severely wounded, left with permanent disabilities.
Oh, wow.
A Secret Service agent and a police officer were also injured in the chaos.
Oh, gosh.
It's a stark reminder that these events have far-reaching consequences, impacting so many lives beyond the intended victim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in Reagan's case, the bullet ricocheted off the presidential limousine lodging in his lung.
Oh.
Significant internal bleeding.
Oh, my.
It was touch and go for a while.
Yeah.
Yet amidst the fear and uncertainty, he managed to maintain his composure,
Yeah.
even cracking jokes with the doctors. That he did. His famous quip to the surgeons, "I hope you're all Republicans," it became an instant anecdote, a testament to his humor and resilience in the face of danger. But those injuries were incredibly serious. He could have easily died. And if he had George H.W. Bush, his vice president would have become president. It raises so many questions. How would that have altered the course of American history?
It's fascinating to think about, isn't it?
It is.
Reagan was such a transformative figure, especially when it comes to the Cold War and his economic policies. Would Bush have followed a similar path? Or would his approach have been drastically different?
It's hard to say for certain.
It is.
Bush was a capable politician in his own right, but he had a different style, a different set of experiences. It's possible he would have taken a less confrontational stance towards the Soviet Union, for instance. Or perhaps his focus on domestic policy would have been more pronounced. We can only speculate, but the ripple effects of Reagan's survival are undeniably vast.
Yeah, they are.
Speaking of George H.W. Bush, he faced a threat of his own. Though this one came after he had left office. It's a story with interesting ties to his son, George W. Bush, and the later decision to invade Iraq.
You're talking about the 1993 incident during Bush Sr.'s visit to Kuwait, right?
Exactly.
So-
The FBI believed that Saddam Hussein's regime was behind it, planning to assassinate Bush Sr. with a car bomb. It's a chilling thought, an attempt on a former president on foreign soil.
It is.
Yes, and the response was swift. President Clinton, then in office, ordered a missile strike on Baghdad in retaliation. It's not difficult to imagine how this event, this very personal threat against his father, could have influenced George W. Bush's thinking about Iraq years later.
You're right.
It adds another layer to an already incredibly complex situation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, many factors led to the Iraq War, but this incident a decade earlier casts a long shadow. It shows how these events, seemingly isolated, can echo across time, influencing decisions and actions in ways we might never fully comprehend.
It's a sobering thought.
Now, speaking of international intrigue, Bill Clinton had his own close call, one that involves a figure who would later become infamous, Osama bin Laden.
You're referring to the incident in Manila in 1996, right?
Yeah, I remember reading about that Clinton's motorcade was rerouted at the last minute, narrowly avoiding a bomb planted under a bridge.
That's the one.
Okay.
The Secret Service had intercepted a message warning of an attack, a stroke of luck that likely saved Clinton's life. Later investigations revealed that the plot was linked to Osama bin Laden, who was then operating out of Afghanistan.
And this was years before 9/11, right?
Yes, it was.
It makes you wonder if Clinton had been killed, how might that have altered the course of events leading up to the global war on terror?
It's a haunting question. Would Al Gore, his vice president, have taken a different approach to foreign policy? Would 9/11 have still happened? Or would the one have taken a different path altogether? We can't know for sure, but it's a reminder that these near misses aren't just about individual lives. They have the potential to reshape the entire trajectory of history.
Okay, let's fast forward to George W. Bush. He had a very close call in 2005 while on a visit to Georgia. It involved a live grenade. It's a story that almost sounds too incredible to be true.
It does, doesn't it?
During a speech, someone threw a live hand grenade at President Bush. But incredibly miraculously, it didn't explode.
Really?
Wait, why not? What stopped it?
Apparently, a handkerchief was wrapped around the grenade, preventing the safety lever from releasing.
What?
Talk about a twist of fate. It's a stark reminder of how seemingly insignificant details, random chance can mean the difference between life and death, between history as we know it and a completely different outcome.
It really is remarkable.
Okay.
Now, Barack Obama, while facing numerous threats during his presidency, suspicious packages, intercepted communications, there wasn't a specific attempt that came as close as some of the ones we've discussed.
That's true. But it's important to acknowledge the constant pressure, the scrutiny that presidents face. They are always potential targets, living with a level of risk that most of us can't even fathom.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our final case study, Donald Trump. In 2016, before he was elected, a British man attempted to grab a police officer's gun at a rally in Las Vegas. His stated goal to assassinate Trump.
A chilling reminder that these threats can emerge from unexpected sources. And given how polarizing a figure Trump was and continues to be, it makes you wonder, what if he had been assassinated before taking office? Would it have changed the trajectory of American politics? Would it have quelled the rise of populism and the divisions we see today?
Or would it have further inflamed tensions? It's impossible to know for sure. It's a question that historians and political analysts will be debating for years to come.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like how easily things could have gone in a totally different direction.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? We look back and think, oh, this is how it happened. But so many of these moments could have just completely changed the game. And like you were saying before, it's not just about the presidents themselves, right? It's about the whole context, the political climate, the social anxieties, all these things bubbling under the surface that sometimes explode into these assassination attempts.
Exactly. Like each one successful or not, it's like a little window into the pressures and fears of that time period.
Makes you think about what those turning points would have looked like if things had gone differently. What if Jackson hadn't survived to push his agenda? What if Lincoln hadn't been around for Reconstruction? So many possibilities.
It's like we've been playing what if with American history, right? Like looking through all of these different lenses to see how things could have unfolded.
It really highlights the fact that history is not some predetermined path. It's more like, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah.
Where every decision, every close call, every random event can send things spiraling in a completely different direction.
It really makes you appreciate the resilience of these presidents, too. Facing that kind of danger and still having to make decisions that impact millions of people.
Not to mention the people working to protect them, the Secret Service, all the security measures. It's a constant battle to stay one step ahead of those threats.
Absolutely. It's a testament to their skill and dedication that more of these attempts haven't been successful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into presidential near misses, what's the biggest thing that stuck with you?
For me, it's that realization that history is shaped by both grand forces and seemingly insignificant events. It's like those for want of a nail stories, right? Where one little thing can snowball into something massive.
It makes you think about what's happening right now that we might not even realize is shaping the future.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what those seemingly small events are that will be looked back on as turning points decades from now.
It's like a reminder that history isn't just some dusty old textbook. It's happening right now all around us, and we're all part of it.
Absolutely. We're all making choices, taking risks, and those choices have consequences. They shape the world we live in.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But I hope everyone listening will keep those what-ifs in mind as they look at the world around them. Because who knows what seemingly small events happening right now might end up shaping the future in massive ways. Until next time.